It seems like every day we get another series of depressing climate headlines. California sees wildfires, Florida is battered by unexpected hurricanes, and the Jersey Shore recently experienced the 8th year anniversary of Hurricane Sandy. Globally speaking, the world is like a ticking time bomb set to go off in 10 years if we fail to significantly reduce our carbon emissions. The year 2030 marks a deadline for us to achieve our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, what if I told you that this bomb could be detonated by eating Oreos? While there may be a wide variety of cookies, Oreos accurately depict our social responsibility to act for the greater good. The so called good stuff lies on the inside, and this is what will ultimately guide us to become people for others. In accordance to fulfilling our commitment to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, it is important to note that the environment underlies each of these goals, from eliminating hunger to reducing inequalities to building sustainable communities around the world. Therefore, all concerned stakeholders need to gain an awareness of all corners of the earth, especially the poorest corners like Somalia. Likewise, climate change has negatively impacted Somalia's weather, food supply, and has sparked a rise in crime there. It is on us to take action against this environmental injustice. To begin, Somalia is in great danger from massive floods and droughts. It is important to note that farming techniques dominate both the economic and social life of the Somali people, so much so that farming is the primary way to gain a foothold in Somali life. I made a conscious effort to present you with the landscape of Somalia because although it may sound like extraneous information, it actually heightens the impact of my first line of reasoning that emphasizes how climate change has impacted Somalia's weather. Likewise, Somali farmers rely on good weather to produce plentiful crops because this in turn will generate a sufficient income. However, because of climate change, many Somali people are now displaced from having their farms destroyed. According to the new humanitarian website, which focuses on humanitarian efforts throughout the world, there are now over 547,000 homeless Somalis who have been forced to relocate from their homes. Home fosters a sense of security, and farming is the Somali people's way of economic existence. Climate change took this from them, and it could take this from us too if we fail to take action. In addition to Somalia's poor weather, Somalia has been undergoing a humanitarian crisis, which leads me to my second point. Somalia is in famine. Since the primary source of income in Somalia is by farming, and being that the farms have been destroyed by the unanticipated floods and droughts induced by climate change, the limited food available in Somalia is expensive and available to only a select few people. Given the unaffordability of food, the famine has caused malnutrition in young children, and UNICEF, which is a children's rights organization, found in 2017 that while 130,000 children in Somalia were malnourished in 2011, this number has since risen to over 944,000 in 2017. This number is rising exponentially, and if we fail to take action, then it will soon be our children that become part of this statistic. Because the Somali people live a struggle for survival, many individuals are putting their morals aside to join the Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist group. The Al-Shabaab is successful at conniving even the best people because they give their participants the items they long for: food, water, shelter, pay. Journalist Laura Heaton demonstrates the Al-Shabaab's widespread influence in the following sentiment. Participation in the Al-Shabaab has increased from 6,000 in 2014 to over 10,000 following the devastating droughts and floods. Those who are unsympathetic to what is happening in Somalia should know that the Al-Shabaab has links to Al-Qaeda, which is the terrorist organization that launched the September 11th attacks on us. We still to this day have political tensions with both terrorist groups. Therefore, who is to say they are not going to attack us again? As a future politician who is more than just all talk, I declare that it is time to take the Oreos out of their packaging so that we can begin putting my proposed solution into practice. I find the most logical solution to be for us to reallocate our $700 billion federal budget, which is a fund that comes from our taxes. I have conducted extensive research so that you do not have to, and I want to share this information with you primarily to appease listeners who are unwilling to help simply because they do not believe combating climate change in Somalia is worth spending money, or that climate change does not exist at all. I want you to know that not a single cent will come out of your pocket to aid the cause, and yet, reallocating the federal fund will help the nation accrue greater economic prosperity. Thus, you have a chance of becoming wealthier for simply being in support of the solution. And maybe you too will become cognizant of your social responsibility to act for the greater good in the long run. Likewise, Ben Cohen, who is the founder of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, finds that the federal budget is a stack of 70 Oreos. One Oreo is $10 billion. The federal budget spends 4 Oreos on education, one half on alternative energy, a fraction on climate change research, and the rest on expensive and unnecessary weaponry. So we are currently spending approximately $655 billion on weapons that are rarely used. I say we because this money is coming from our taxes. Now, if we take several Oreos off weaponry, then combating climate change in Somalia and the rest of the world will be possible. Truthfully so, combating climate change is our first step toward achieving the SDGs by the year 2030 because doing so will enable us to successfully achieve every other goal. Remember that we already have the funds, but the funds are not being allocated properly. Furthermore, reallocating the federal budget will demonstrate our empathy and discernment across all corners of the earth, not just Somalia. Climate change is not going away anytime soon, and the detrimental impacts it has had on Somalia's weather, food supply, and crime demonstrate that if we fail to take action, then the landscape of Somalia will soon become the landscape of the entire world. As of right now, this is our chance to implement change, and I am happy to report that you did not need a doctor to tell you that it all starts with an unhealthy snack. Let us get to work before it is too late. Thank you. I'm Vincent Rotondo, and I approve this message.